wanted to put away my husband's old papers. Then I found one hidden letter with a name I knew too well. My hands shook as I read it. In that moment, I realized my whole marriage had been built on a lie. My name is Donoma. I am a wildlife photographer. I believed my family would always protect me, but I was about to learn that the deepest betrayal came from my own sister. The afternoon sun slanted through the dust motes in the attic, illuminating the stacks of boxes I had been meaning to organize for months. My husband, Elias, was out for the weekend on a retreat, leaving me with the quiet task of archiving his disorganized collection of old business files. I moved with a sense of domestic peace, humming a low tune while I sorted through invoices and outdated contracts. It was tedious work, the kind that usually acted as a balm for my busy mind, but then I pulled a thick, weathered manila folder from the very back of a cedar trunk. It hadn't been opened in years, sealed with a piece of tape that had turned brittle and yellow. As I peeled the tape back, my heart gave a strange, uneven thud against my ribs. Inside there was no business paperwork. Instead, there was a single sealed envelope that hadn't been through the mail. The handwriting on the front was elegant and sharp, a script I had known my entire life. It was my sister, Clara. A cold, prickling sensation began to spread from the base of my neck down to my fingertips. My name is Donoma, and I've spent my career waiting for the right shot in the wilderness, learning how to be patient, how to be silent, and how to watch for the slightest shift in the brush. I had never expected to apply that vigilance to my own home. I slid the paper out, my breath hitching as I read the first line. My sister hadn't just been writing to my husband. She had been dictating the terms of our life together. The words detailed a secret arrangement, a plan that had been set into motion long before Elias and I were even married. The fear didn't arrive all at once. It built in layers, suffocating and sharp. Each sentence I scanned felt like a blow to my stomach, confirming a reality I hadn't even known I was living in. My hands were trembling so violently that the paper rattled, a thin, dry sound in the heavy silence of the attic. I felt as though the floorboards had suddenly vanished, leaving me suspended in a dark, empty space where nothing I knew to be true remained. I sat on the floor, the letter clutched in my lap, feeling the world contract until it was only me and the evidence of a ruinous, calculated deception. I knew that once I stood up, once I exited this room, I could never go back to being the woman who trusted blindly. I had seen behind the curtain, and the actors were not who they claimed to be. The following days were a study in impossible restraint. I moved through the house with a mask of normalcy, my heart acting like a frantic, trapped bird beneath my ribs. When Elias returned, he greeted me with the same easy, crooked smile that had charmed me for 5 years, but now it looked different, like a performance. I watched him unpack his gear, observing the way he tucked his phone away, the way his eyes darted toward the study where I had left the box. I started noticing the small, subtle shifts in his behavior that I had spent years writing off as quirks or stress. He was more guarded than he used to be, and he seemed to have a nervous habit of checking his watch whenever the house went silent. I spent hours analyzing his movements. I recalled moments from the last few years, the unexplained business trips he had taken, the times Clara had visited and they had retreated to the porch for long, low-toned conversations that ceased the moment I walked outside. I had excused it all as family closeness, as professional camaraderie, but the puzzle pieces were rearranging themselves into a picture I didn't want to see. Was it always this way? Had they been lying to me since the wedding day? I felt like a stranger in my own home, observing a play where the script had been written without my consent. Every time Elias kissed my forehead or asked about my day, I had to suppress the urge to scream. I played the part of the devoted wife, pouring his coffee and listening to his anecdotes, all while my mind catalogued every inconsistency, every small lie that had piled up to form the foundation of our marriage. I decided then that I would not give him the satisfaction of a confrontation before I had the full, ugly truth in my hands. The urge to look back became an obsession. I spent my nights in the dark, scrolling through years of digital archives, emails, and photos on my laptop. I wasn't looking for love, I was looking for patterns. I found them everywhere. There was a photo from a gala 3 years ago where Clara stood behind Elias, her hand resting on his shoulder with a familiarity that made my skin crawl. Beneath it, I found a thread of messages from that same month, coded and defensive, discussing a project that never actually existed. It wasn't just the affair, if that's what it was. It was the sheer scope of the collusion. I remembered Clara acting strangely whenever I brought up our financial future, always steering the conversation toward investments I wasn't privy to. I questioned my own past decisions, my choice to trust them, my choice to move here, my choice to let my guard down entirely. The betrayal wasn't a sudden storm. It was erosion. It had started years ago, long before I suspected a thing. Every birthday, every holiday dinner, every shared glass of wine had been a staged event. The realization made me feel hollow. I had been a prop in their drama, a convenient bridge for their interests. I realized that my sister, the person I had shared a childhood with, had been the architect of this entire deception, while my husband was merely the eager accomplice. I was alone, and the past felt like a minefield I had unknowingly been dancing through. I needed more than just the letter. I began to spend my days in a state of hypervigilance, quietly searching every corner of our shared life for further proof. I checked the banking statements, looking for discrepancies that I had previously ignored, thinking they were simply bad accounting. I found what I was looking for, hidden in a digital folder masked as a backup for my photography business. There were documents detailing offshore accounts, signatures I didn't recognize, and transfers of money that I had earned, money I thought was safe in our joint savings. They hadn't just betrayed my heart. They had systematically dismantled my security. The lies were vast, a web of financial manipulation that would have left me destitute if they had chosen to pull the plug. It was colder than I had imagined. It wasn't just a lapse in judgment or a moment of weakness. It was a career path. They had been working together to siphon resources for a future they envisioned without me. I locked the documents on an external drive, my heart steadying into a cold, rhythmic beat of determination. I promised myself I would not crack. I would stay calm. I would stay quiet. And I would be the one to hold the final card. The anger was there, of course, but it had turned into something sharper, more precise. A surgeon's blade rather than a blunt instrument. Now, the dance became more complex. I started testing them, setting small traps to see how they would react under pressure. I brought up a fake conversation about a forgotten tax document, watching as their faces flickered with a brief, uncontained panic. Elias stuttered, his eyes darting to the corner of the room, while Clara, who had stopped by for lunch, immediately launched into a rehearsed-sounding explanation about why I shouldn't worry my head about the paperwork. They were nervous, jumpy, and increasingly sloppy. I saw the way they looked at each other when they thought I wasn't paying attention. A quick, desperate glance of shared fear. It confirmed everything. I stopped believing a single word they said. If Elias told me the sky was blue, I looked out the window to verify it. I was no longer a participant in their life. I was an observer. I began preparing for the end, not with dramatic flair, but with the cold, hard logic of someone who has nothing left to lose. I transferred my own files. I backed up my portfolio, and I started keeping a journal of every lie they told, every discrepancy I caught. I was waiting, watching the clock, waiting for the moment when I would be ready to burn it all down. The internal conflict was a constant, gnawing weight. Part of me, the part that still remembered the little girl who played with Clara in the backyard, the part that remembered why I fell in love with Elias, wanted to just leave. I wanted to pack a bag, walk out the door, and never look back. But justice felt like a necessity, a way to reclaim the years they had stolen. I turned to my father, but even then I played it close to the chest. I couldn't tell him everything. He adored Clara and he was proud of my marriage. If I told him the truth, he would be crushed, and he might inadvertently warn them. "Is everything okay with you and Elias?" he asked one afternoon, his eyes searching mine. "It's just work stress, Dad," I replied, my voice steady. "Things are complicated." "Don't let things stay complicated, Donoma. Life is too short to carry unnecessary burdens." His words hit me like a physical blow. He didn't know that the burdens I was carrying were manufactured by his favorite daughter and my husband. I realized then that my silence was protecting the wrong people. If I left now without exposing them, they would just move on to someone else, repeating the cycle. I had to ensure that their actions had consequences. I became stronger with every passing day, the pain hardening into resolve. I was not going to be the victim who faded away. I was going to be the one who stood in the wreckage and